The locker room reeked of sweat and triumph, the air thick with the roar of victory after our team's brutal win. I stood under the shower's scalding spray, letting it burn away the ache in my muscles, when Jake's laugh, sharp, reckless, cut through the steam. "Yo, Ethan, you gonna hog all the hot water or what?" That was Jake. Always loud, always teasing, always too close. For 2 years, we'd been teammates on the college lacrosse team in upstate New York. Our friendship a tangle of roughhousing and late-night talks. He was the golden boy, blonde hair, blue eyes, the kind of charm that made everyone lean in. I was the quiet one, brown hair, hazel eyes, good enough to keep up but never the star. Jake's playfulness was his trademark. A slap on the back, a mock wrestle, a grin that lingered too long. But tonight, something felt off, like a wire pulled too tight. We were the last ones in the locker room, the others already gone to celebrate. Jake leaned against the tiled wall, his towel slung low, smirking. "You played like shit today, man," he said, but his eyes danced with something softer, something I couldn't name. I laughed it off, turning away, but he stepped closer, his voice dropping. "You know I'm just messing with you, right?" His hand grazed my shoulder, and my breath caught. It wasn't the first time he'd touched me like that, casual, fleeting, but it hit different tonight, like he meant it. I pulled on my jeans, avoiding his gaze. Yeah, keep talking, hotshot." My voice sounded steady, but my heart was hammering. I'd known for years I was gay, kept it locked tight, especially around the team. Jake was straight, always chasing girls, always bragging about his latest fling. But those moments, his hand lingering, his eyes searching mine, made me wonder, made me hope, and hope was dangerous. We walked out into the crisp October night, the campus quiet except for the distant thump of music from the frat houses. Jake suggested we skip the team's bar crawl and grab beers at his dorm instead. "Just us," he said, nudging my arm. "I'm not in the mood for their drunk nonsense." I agreed, ignoring the warning bells in my head. His dorm was a mess. Clothes strewn across the floor, empty cans on the desk, but it felt like a sanctuary. Just us. He cracked open 2 beers, handing me one as he flopped onto his bed. "To winning," he toasted, his grin wide but his eyes intense. We drank, talked about the game, about nothing, about everything. The room grew warm, the space between us shrinking. He leaned closer, his knee brushing mine, and told a story about some girl he'd hooked up with last week. But his voice faltered, and he looked at me too long, like he was seeing something new. "Dude, you ever think about, I dunno, trying something different?" His words hung in the air, vague but heavy. My pulse spiked. "Different how?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He shrugged, but his hand found my arm again, this time staying there. "Just different." His thumb traced a slow circle on my skin, and the world tilted. I should have pulled away, should have laughed it off, changed the subject. But I didn't. I leaned in, just a fraction, and his breath hitched. "Jake," I said, a warning, a question. His eyes flicked to my lips, and then he was moving, closing the gap, his mouth crashing into mine. It was messy, desperate, like he'd been holding it back forever. My hands found his hair, pulling him closer, and for a moment, nothing else existed. Just his warmth, his taste, the way he pressed against me like he couldn't get enough. But then he froze, pulled back. His eyes were wide, panicked. "Shit, Ethan, I didn't mean." He scrambled off the bed, running a hand through his hair. I'm not like that." The words hit like a punch. I sat there, heart pounding, humiliation burning through me. "Like what?" I asked, my voice sharp. He wouldn't look at me. "You know what I mean," he muttered, grabbing his jacket. "I gotta go." He was out the door before I could say another word, leaving me alone with the taste of him still on my lips and a sinking feeling that I'd just lost my best friend. The next morning, practice was hell. Jake avoided me, sticking to the other guys, his laugh louder than usual but brittle. I kept my head down, focusing on drills, but every glance his way felt like a knife. Had I misread him? Pushed him? The kiss replayed in my mind, every detail sharp and agonizing. He kissed me first, but now he was acting like I'd crossed a line. By midday, I couldn't take it. I cornered him behind the bleachers, where the team wouldn't see. "Jake, what the hell was that last night?" My voice shook, anger and hurt spilling out. He looked trapped, his jaw tight. "It was a mistake, okay? I was drunk. I wasn't thinking." But his eyes betrayed him, flickering with something like fear or want. "You didn't seem drunk," I shot back. "You seemed like you wanted it." He stepped closer, voice low and furious. "Don't do this, Ethan. Don't make it weird." But he didn't move away, and the air between us crackled. I wanted to shake him, to demand answers, but I saw the panic in his eyes, the way his hands trembled. He wasn't ready to face this, whatever this was. I stepped back, swallowing hard. Fine, forget it. But as I walked away, I knew forgetting was impossible. That night, I lay in my dorm, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment we'd shared. The roughhousing, the late-night talks, the way his smile always felt like a secret just for me. I'd fallen for him, hard, and last night had cracked something open I couldn't close. But Jake? He was running from it, and I didn't know if he'd ever stop. The days after the kiss were a blur of avoidance and ache. Jake didn't text, didn't call, didn't even look at me during practice. The team noticed. Guys started asking why we weren't joking around like usual. I shrugged it off, but inside, I was unraveling. Every time I saw him, my chest tightened, torn between wanting to confront him and wanting to disappear. By Friday, I couldn't stand the silence. I caught him after practice, his bag slung over his shoulder, heading for his car. "Jake, wait." He froze but didn't turn. I stepped closer, voice low. "We need to talk." His shoulders tensed, but he nodded, leading me to a quiet corner of the parking lot. The autumn leaves crunched under our feet, the air sharp with the promise of winter. "I'm sorry," he said before I could speak, his voice rough. I freaked out. I didn't know how to handle it. His eyes met mine, and for the first time since that night, I saw the real Jake, vulnerable, scared. "I'm not gay, Ethan. I'm not. But when I'm with you," he trailed off, rubbing the back of his neck. "It's confusing, okay?" My heart pounded, hope and fear colliding. "Confusing how?" I asked, stepping closer. He didn't back away this time. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice barely audible. "I've never felt like this with anyone else. Not with girls, not with anyone. But I can't. I'm not supposed to feel this way." His words hit me hard, a mix of relief and pain. He felt something, but he was fighting it, trapped by expectations, his family's, the team's. I wanted to reach for him, to tell him it was okay, but I knew he wasn't ready. "You don't have to figure it all out now," I said softly. "But don't shut me out." He nodded, but the distance between us lingered. Over the next week, things thawed slightly. He started talking to me again, small stuff, game strategies, class assignments, but the playful spark was gone. I missed him, but I didn't push. I couldn't lose him completely. Then came the away game in Boston. The team piled into a bus, the mood rowdy, but Jake and I sat apart, the tension between us palpable. At the hotel, we were paired as roommates by chance, or maybe coach sensed something was off and thought it'd force us to fix it. The room was small, 2 beds too close together, and the air felt charged. That night, after the team dinner, we were alone again. Jake sat on his bed, flipping through his phone, but his eyes kept darting to me. I couldn't take it anymore. "Jake, say something," I pleaded, sitting across from him. "Anything." He tossed his phone aside, running a hand through his hair. "I keep thinking about that night," he said finally, his voice low. "I keep thinking about you." My breath caught, but before I could respond, he stood, pacing. "I'm not supposed to want this, Ethan. My dad, my brothers, they'd lose it. The team would." He stopped, his hands clenched. But when I'm with you, it's like nothing else matters. I stood, closing the distance between us. Then let it matter, I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. Just for tonight. Let it be okay. His eyes searched mine, and then, slowly, he nodded. This time, when he kissed me, it wasn't frantic. It was soft, deliberate, like he was memorizing every second. My hands found his face, his neck, pulling him closer until we were tangled together, the world falling away. But the morning brought reality crashing back. Jake was quiet, distant, staring out the window as we packed for the game. "This doesn't change anything," he said finally, his voice flat. "I can't do this, Ethan. Not out there." He gestured vaguely, meaning the team, the world, his life. My stomach dropped, but I nodded. I'd take what I could get, even if it was just stolen moments in the dark. The game was a blur. Jake played like a man possessed, aggressive, almost reckless. I watched him, torn between pride and pain, knowing he was fighting more than the other team. Afterward, in the locker room, he caught my eye for a split second, a silent apology, before turning away. I wanted to scream, to grab him and make him see we could figure this out. But I didn't. I let him walk away because pushing him might break him, and us, beyond repair. Back on campus, the distance grew again. Jake threw himself into parties, girls, anything to avoid me. I saw him with a new girl at a frat party, his arm around her, but his eyes found mine across the room, full of guilt and something deeper. I left, my heart heavy, wondering if I'd ever get him back, or if I'd ever had him at all. Weeks passed, and the fracture between us deepened. Jake was everywhere, on the field, in the dining hall, laughing with the team, but he was a stranger. I buried myself in schoolwork, trying to drown out the ache, but every memory of him stung. The team started to fracture too. Our chemistry was off and coach noticed. "You and Jake sort your shit out," he barked after a sloppy practice. "We need you both." I tried. I texted Jake, asking to meet, but he brushed me off with excuses. Finally, desperate, I showed up at his dorm unannounced. He opened the door, shirtless, hair messy, and for a moment, I forgot why I was there. "What do you want, Ethan?" he asked, his voice tired but not angry. "I want my friend back," I said, stepping inside. "I want us to stop pretending nothing happened." He sighed, closing the door, and sat on his bed, head in his hands. "I'm trying, okay? But every time I see you, he stopped, his jaw tight. "I don't know who I am anymore." My heart broke for him, for the war he was fighting inside. I sat beside him, careful not to touch. "You're still you, Jake. This doesn't change that." He looked at me, eyes raw. "You make it sound so easy. But my family, they'd never accept this. And the team, God. Ethan, you know how they talk about guys like," he trailed off, shame in his voice. "Guys like me," I finished quietly. He flinched but didn't deny it. I took a breath, steadying myself. "I'm not asking you to come out. I just want you to stop running from me." He didn't answer, but he didn't push me away either. We sat in silence, the weight of unspoken words heavy between us. The turning point came unexpectedly. During a home game, I took a brutal hit, my helmet cracking against the ground. The world spun, and the next thing I knew, Jake was kneeling beside me, his face pale. "Ethan, you okay? Talk to me." His voice was frantic, his hand gripping my arm. I nodded, dazed, but the look in his eyes, fear, care, something deeper, stayed with me. He drove me to the hospital, ignoring coach's protests. In the waiting room, he sat close, his knee brushing mine. "You scared the shit out of me," he muttered, his voice thick. I thought he didn't finish, but he didn't need to. For the first time, I saw how much I meant to him, even if he couldn't say it. I was fine, just a mild concussion. But Jake insisted on driving me back to my dorm. Inside, he lingered, his usual confidence gone. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted, his voice breaking. "But I don't want to lose you." I reached for his hand, tentative, and he didn't pull away. "Then don't," I said simply. That night, we didn't kiss, didn't cross any lines. We just talked, really talked, for the first time in weeks. He told me about his dad, a strict ex-military man who'd raised him to be tough, to fit a mold. He told me about the pressure to be the perfect son, the perfect athlete. And I told him about my own fears, coming out to my parents, hiding who I was from the team. It wasn't a fix, but it was a start. The next few weeks were fragile but hopeful. Jake stopped avoiding me, and we found a new rhythm. Careful, quiet moments when no one was watching. A brush of hands in the locker room, a shared look during practice. But the team was still a minefield. Rumors started swirling. Guys noticing we were off, whispering about why we weren't as tight anymore. Jake tensed every time someone made a crude joke, and I saw the fear creep back into his eyes. One night, at a team bonfire, it all came to a head. A senior, Mike, drunk and loud, made a snide comment about fags on another team. The guys laughed, but Jake's face went hard. He stood, beer in hand, and said, "That's not funny." The group went quiet, stunned. Mike smirked. "Chill, man, it's just a joke." But Jake didn't back down. "It's not a joke to some people," he said, his voice steady but sharp. He glanced at me, just for a second, and my heart stopped. He wasn't out, wasn't ready, but he'd taken a stand. For me, for us. Later, alone by the fire, he grabbed my hand, hidden in the shadows. "I meant it," he whispered. "I'm trying, Ethan." I squeezed his hand, my throat tight. "I know." Jake's stand at the bonfire changed things, not just between us, but with the team. Some guys started watching us closer, their jokes sharper, testing boundaries. Others, like our captain, Tom, seemed to respect Jake more, sensing the courage behind his words. But Jake was still walking a tightrope, balancing who he was with who he thought he had to be. And I was right there with him, caught between hope and the fear of losing him to his own doubts. We started stealing moments whenever we could. Late nights in his dorm, early mornings before practice, quiet walks around campus when the world was asleep. Each time, Jake let his guard down a little more. One night, under a blanket of stars by the lake, he kissed me soft and slow, his hands framing my face like I was something precious. "I don't know what I'm doing," he murmured, his forehead against mine. "But I know I want this." My heart soared, but I saw the conflict in his eyes, the weight of a world that wasn't ready for us. Thanksgiving break loomed, and Jake was dreading it. He was going home to his family in Connecticut, a place where his dad's rules reigned supreme. "They'll ask about girls," he said one night, his voice bitter. "They always do, and I'll have to lie." I wanted to tell him he didn't have to, that he could be himself, but I knew it wasn't that simple. Not yet. The break was torture. Without Jake's texts or calls, his dad had a strict, no phones at dinner rule. I felt unmoored. I went home to my parents in Vermont, where I'd come out 2 years ago. They were supportive, if awkward, but I didn't tell them about Jake. Felt too fragile, too private. Instead, I spent the week replaying every moment we'd shared, wondering if he'd come back changed, or not come back to me at all. When we returned to campus, Jake was different. Quieter, edgier, like his family had reminded him of the box he was supposed to fit into. He didn't avoid me, but the easy warmth was gone. "My dad kept talking about my future," he said one night, his voice flat. "Marriage, kids, the whole deal." I just nodded, "Ethan." I didn't know what else to do. I reached for him, but he pulled back, just slightly. "I need time," he said, and my stomach sank. Time was a luxury we didn't have. Not with the season heating up, not with the team watching, not with my heart breaking every time he shut me out. But I nodded, because loving him meant giving him space, even if it hurt. The next game was a disaster. Jake was off, missing passes, taking reckless shots. I tried to cover for him, but we lost, and the locker room was tense. Mike, the senior who'd made the joke at the bonfire, cornered Jake after. "What's your deal, man?" You're playing like you're distracted. His tone was mocking, his eyes flicking to me. Jake's jaw clenched, but he didn't respond. I stepped in, voice sharp. Back off, Mike. He smirked but walked away, leaving a seed of doubt in the air. That night, Jake showed up at my dorm, eyes wild. I can't keep doing this, he said, pacing. Pretending, lying, hiding. It's killing me. I stood, heart pounding. Then don't, I said, desperate. Be with me, Jake. We'll figure it out. He stopped, looking at me like I was both his salvation and his ruin. Then he kissed me hard, like he was drowning and I was air. We fell onto my bed, a tangle of need and fear, and for the first time, he didn't pull away after. But the next morning, reality hit again. Jake got a call from his dad. Something about a family friend's daughter he had to meet. He hung up, his face pale, and said, I can't keep disappointing them, Ethan. I wanted to scream that he wasn't a disappointment, that he was enough, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I watched him leave, feeling the distance between us grow again. The team's next practice was brutal. Coach paired us for drills, forcing us to work together. Jake's passes were sharp, his focus intense, but his eyes avoided mine. Afterward, in the locker room, Mike muttered something under his breath, too low for me to hear, but Jake's face went red. He shoved Mike against the lockers, voice low and dangerous. Say it again, I dare you. The room went silent, every eye on them. Mike backed down, but the damage was done. The team was splitting, and we were at the center of it. That night, alone in my dorm, I realized something. Loving Jake meant fighting for him, even when he couldn't fight for himself. But it also meant preparing for the possibility that he might never be ready. The thought was a knife in my chest, but I couldn't give up. Not yet. Winter descended on campus, blanketing everything in snow and silence. Jake and I were caught in a fragile dance. Moments of closeness followed by days of distance. But something had shifted after the locker room fight. Jake was done hiding, at least with me. He'd show up at my dorm unannounced, his smile tentative but real, and we'd talk or kiss or just sit together, the world outside forgotten. The team, though, was another story. Mike's comments had spread, and whispers followed us everywhere. Jake took it harder than I did, his jaw tight every time someone looked at us too long. I tried to reassure him, but the pressure was building. One night, after a late practice, he grabbed my hand in the empty parking lot, his grip fierce. I'm done caring what they think, he said, his breath visible in the cold air. I want you, Ethan. I'm scared, but I want this. His words were everything I'd wanted to hear, but they came with a cost. The next day, Mike confronted us in the locker room, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. What's going on with you two? You're acting like a couple of... He didn't finish, but the word hung in the air. Jake stepped forward, eyes blazing. Finish that sentence, Mike. Go on. The room was deathly quiet, every teammate watching. Mike backed down, but the damage was done. The team was divided, and Jake was at the breaking point. That night, he told me he was going to tell his family. I can't keep lying, he said, his voice shaking but resolute. If they love me, they'll deal with it. I held him, my heart swelling with pride and fear. I knew what this could cost him, his dad's approval, his place in his family, but I also knew he needed to do it for himself. He went home for the weekend, and I waited, every hour agony. When he came back, his eyes were red, his shoulders slumped. My dad didn't take it well, he said, voice hollow. Said I was throwing my life away. My mom just cried. I pulled him into my arms, letting him break against me. I'm here, I whispered. No matter what. The team was our last hurdle. At the next practice, Jake asked Coach for a minute to talk. Standing in front of everyone, he took a deep breath. I'm gay, he said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. And I'm with Ethan. If you've got a problem with it, that's on you. The room was silent. Then Tom, our captain, stepped forward. "You're still our teammate," he said simply. A few guys nodded, others looked away, but it was enough. Jake's shoulders relaxed, just a fraction, and I felt the weight lift off both of us. We weren't naive. Some teammates never came around, and Jake's family was a work in progress. But we had each other, and that was enough to face the world. Spring came, and with it our last season together. We played better than ever, our connection on the field stronger for everything we'd been through. Off the field, we were building something real. Dates at quiet diners, late-night drives, moments where we didn't have to hide. The night before graduation, we stood on the rooftop of Jake's dorm, the city skyline glittering below. He took my hand, his smile soft but sure. "I was scared shitless that night I kissed you," he said, laughing. "But it was the best thing I ever did." I kissed him, slow and deep, under the stars, knowing we'd face whatever came next together. Our story wasn't perfect. There were still battles, family, society, our own doubts. But every time Jake looked at me, his eyes full of love and courage, I knew we'd won something bigger. We'd found each other, and in a world that tried to tear us apart, that was everything.